Hi everyone, it's Holly and I'm here with my November wrap up. And the Murphy cat is now walking over here. Of course he is. So I'm filming this a little bit early, but I don't think I'll finish up any more books because I leave for vacation on the 30th. So I want to make sure this gets filmed and edited and everything. I also, normally I like write down, and my battery is dying. Of course it is. And so normally I like record how many books I read and their ratings and everything, but I didn't do that this month because I forgot. I will do it like for myself. I have my like reading journal in front of me. And I will go through and do it, but I just haven't yet. But I believe I read 11 books, which is a decrease for me. But honestly, that's more than I thought I would get read, and I am currently reading like 3 books. I'm like reading a physical book, an ebook, and an audiobook. So I don't know. And I think one of those physical books will get done probably before I go on vacation. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. I don't know, but I'll just talk about it next month. Anyways, so the books I read. So first, where are books, Murphy? Where are books? First, I finished listening to The 15th Minute by Serena Bowen, and this is the 5th book in the Ivy Year series, and I gave this 5 stars just like I did the first time. I got this on Audible Escape, and this is like one of my favorite Serena Bowen books and my favorite Ivy Years books. It still deals with like complicated and like deep issues like her other books, but for whatever reason this one feels like much lighter than the other books. I don't know, but I love DJ and I love Leanne, and I think that they're a great couple, and I just love reading about them. They're amazing, and she addresses like a very complex issue in here, and I think she does a pretty good job of it. Then I listened to another audiobook. This one I got from the library, and that was Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I gave this 4 stars. I have like read, I don't think I've ever read a Dave Ramsey book, but I've read like websites and I've seen a lot of YouTube videos talking about him and his theory. Generally, I agree with him. Not that I think you have to agree with somebody's like nonfiction work to like think that the book has merit. But generally I agree with him. I'm like pretty anti-debt. And I'm currently trying to pay down my debt. The only debt I have is student loans and my car. I have no like consumer debt or anything, which is probably why I'm not opposed to credit cards, but like Dave Ramsey is like cash only. He did narrate this book, which I liked because he's very passionate. I mean, his like stuff is very much like based in like Christianity, but I don't think you need to be religious or Christian to follow this. I used to follow a YouTube channel. They don't make videos really anymore. Their name was Gazelle Intense, like Intense, T-E-N-T-S, but it's like a play on Dave Ramsey says get Gazelle Intense about stuff, like get really after it. And they weren't religious. I do follow a girl named Budget Girl. She still makes videos, and I don't think she's particularly religious either, so you don't have to be in order to follow his stuff. But he definitely, I don't think he is a pastor, but I feel like he definitely speaks like a pastor. Or like what you would think a pastor would speak like. Like he's very passionate, and just like there's like a tonation. I don't know if they learned that in like seminary or whatever. Like I don't know, I was raised Catholic, so my understanding of like Christian, like Protestant faith is pretty limited. But he's just very passionate and very into it, and I think that that's really good and important to have. No. Come on. And then I read Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is the first book in her Harbinger series. This came out earlier this year, and this is a spin-off series. This is like a spin-off series to her Dark Elements series, and this follows a character from that, or like he is present in this. The main character is a girl named Trinity. I love Trinity. She's like one of my favorite characters of the year, if not all time. She is like the perfect Jennifer L. Armentrout heroine, I feel like. Like she combines all the best parts of all of her like previous heroines into this amazing character. And so this takes place in that same world. So there are gargoyles who fight demons. and everything. And then you have Trinity, who lives with these gargoyles, but she's something else. She is also dealing with RP, retinitis pigmentosa, which Jennifer Armentrout herself has. And so that's like a really big deal, and it's explored really well in here. I mean, not surprisingly, but still really well done. I cannot wait for the next book in this series. This was so close to a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved it. I don't want to talk too much about it because, like, I don't want to spoil the dark elements, but I also, like, I don't know. I just thought this was a really well done story. Where am I putting books? Next, I read an ebook arc from NetGalley, and that was The Princess Plan by Julia London. I was reading this. I did my like first reading vlog this month. I think I talked about Storm and Fury in there as well. But The Princess Plan, oh, it got 2 stars. This is by Julia London, if I didn't say that already. It's a historical romance, and I have historically liked Julia London. Like, I talked about this, I think, in that reading vlog. She wrote the first romance novel that ever made me cry, and it's The Book of Scandal, and I've really enjoyed her other works, and this one was just so disappointing. Like, I would have DNF'd it if it wasn't a review book, but I really hate DNFing review books. This just felt very flat. Like, I didn't really care about the, like, I didn't care about the romance. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't buy the romance. I had trouble keeping characters straight. Like, they didn't seem like well developed and coherent. And it got better around the 70% mark, but like only up to like a 3-star. And I was not going to give it a 3-star because like the last 20 to 30% was decent, when I would have DNF'd it at like 40% because it was bad, if that makes sense. Then I read Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I think I started this while I was doing that reading vlog as well. I gave this 5 stars. It's contemporary romance, and it is one of my favorite books of the year. I'm so happy I read this. I like randomly heard about this, and I'm obsessed with it. I thought it was so good. It was so cute. It was, I said, I think in that video, it gave me like total romantic comedy, like late 90s, early 2000s vibes. And it's told in first person, which I don't typically like, but in my romances, or in general really, but I thought Emily was a great narrator. I thought she was funny. I thought she was well-rounded. I loved the romance. I loved the pacing. There's other relationships in here, like Emily's relationship with her sister, with her niece, with this girl Stacy she meets. I think that they're all great and well done, and I think this was a debut novel. Yes. And there's another book coming out next year, and it's with Stacy, one of the side characters in here, and I'm very excited to read it and see Jen DeLuca write some more. This is a like enemies to lovers kind of story, but it's really not. I think I've talked before about like liking enemies to lovers, and I think maybe I need to modify how I say that, because I do like it, but I like this kind of enemies to lovers where there's like a slight distaste, but maybe it comes from like deep-seated sexual tension. And there's just like bickering and like bantering. It's not like really harsh or biting or anything like that. It's just really like cute. And I don't know, but that's what I like. This was like the enemies to lovers type of story I like. Then I listened to Bountiful by Serena Bowen. A lot of Serena Bowen was consumed this month. Whatever, it's fine. Oh, I'm missing a book. Hold on. This was a reread. I listened to this on Audible Escape because I've been listening to the True North series. This is the 4th book. And I remembered not being like the biggest fan of this. I still gave it 4 stars. And I did this time as well. But I think I enjoyed this more this time around than the first time that I read it. This follows Zara, who you meet earlier in the series, and she ends up getting pregnant earlier in the series, and nobody knows who the father of her baby is. And in this book, that's kind of revealed and explored. And here, and then you have, what is his name? Dave. Dave Barringer. And he is actually part of the Brooklyn Bruisers team, which is another series that is written by Serena. Because we're friends. Yeah. by Serena Bowen. And he came to Vermont on like a break during the summer one year, and they had like a fling, and that's how she gets pregnant. And then he comes back like 2 years later and finds out that he has a kid, and they have to figure everything out. And I'm not a huge fan of secret babies, which I do think I have a trope video about it, and I think I talk about this book in there. I don't like secret babies, also known as the mother never tells the dad, but this one I think she did a good job of explaining why he doesn't know, and so it doesn't bother me, because normally I just think that the mother is like trash. Sorry for not telling the dad. Like, the dad could be trash too, like, for all I know, but he's not given the opportunity to like step up. Also, this is only 2 years. I've read somewhere it's like 10 or 16, and that's just, to me, awful. Like, even if the dad is like literally the worst person in the world, which is like never gonna happen in a romance novel, I still think you owe it to them to tell them and like try to get their rights taken away or something. But that's like a whole nother conversation, you know. But I think this is really fun, and I really like Zara. I think she's really growing on me, and I like her relationship with Dave, and she like really struggles with being a mom and like caring about her daughter and what's best for her daughter, but also trying to take care of herself. And I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that that's a really difficult thing to deal with, especially if you're like a single parent. Obviously in this case, this is the parent, like the father of her child, but it's still basically like she's a single mom bringing a guy into her child's life. And I do think that's a really difficult thing for parents to deal with. I was the daughter of single parents, so I do vaguely remember when my now step parents were brought into my life. I was like 5 or 6, but those are the only people I recall ever meeting. Like, I don't remember meeting anybody else my parents dated. So I get that it's a complicated subject. So I did really enjoy this on my reread. Another one that I enjoyed more upon a reread was Speakeasy by Serena Bowen, which is also a 4-star read, still 4 stars. Another Audible Escape reread. I think I read this earlier this year, or maybe last year for the first time. I think maybe last year, because I read Fireworks earlier this year. And this follows May Shipley, who we meet her in the earlier books, and her brother is the male protagonist in the first story, Bittersweet. And then it follows Alec Rossi, who's actually Zara from this book, one of her brothers. And there's kind of some like drama between the Shipleys and the Rossis. And I remember, I think my main issue with this the first time I read it, because I have a tendency to not read synopsis for books that are by authors who I really like and trust. So like, I don't read a Serena Bowen synopsis. I don't read a Tessa Dare synopsis. Like, I trust them. I don't feel the need to. I just buy the book. I read the book. So I remember being a little disappointed in this book initially, because even though, like, obviously this is a man on the cover, I don't know why I thought any differently, but like over here it's a man, and then this is May. But May is bi, and she is dating a girl earlier in the series who's like a bitch. And she is present in this book as well. Still a horrible person. And so going into this book, I really thought it was going to be a female-female romance. Now that is my fault. If I had read the synopsis, I would have known that. But I remember being kind of disappointed by that. Now, obviously, she's bi. She can do whatever she wants. Like, well, she can do whatever she wants no matter what, right? Like, but she is bisexual, so she is attracted to men and women. So it's not weird for her to end up with a man. It just wasn't what I was expecting the first time around. So knowing that this time allowed me to enjoy this story a lot more. And like, this is interesting because May is a recovering alcoholic. Lord knows I love reading about like addicts, apparently. And Alec owns a bar, so I really like that dynamic and that struggle that mostly she has around it. Like, she doesn't want to like inconvenience him, but he doesn't view it as an inconvenience. And I like spending time with the Shipleys again. They're like my favorite book family. I feel like they're amazing. I wish, not that my parents aren't great, but I wish Ruth Shipley was in my life because she's just the best mom. So, you know. And then I picked up Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. And this is the first book in this series. It's a young adult, like, historical mystery thriller thing. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I thought this was a little disappointing. So I did know going into this that this book would probably not 100% be for me because it does deal with like Jack the Ripper, and I was worried it would be a little creepy or a little unsettling for me. Now, to be honest, I don't think this book is actually that creepy. I'm just a big baby. So I was a little like freaked out on occasion. Or she works with her uncle who does like autopsies and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff does kind of gross me out, especially as I get older. For some reason it grosses me out more. Like when I was younger I could watch like all that crap on TV and like not care, and now I get like gaggy when I like even just read about it, apparently. So yeah, but I kind of knew that going in, and I don't hold that against the book at all. Like that's what this book is. It's like, it's fine. The main character, Audrey Rose, I think that, stop it. I think she is very interesting, and I will probably continue with this series. I might get them from the library. I don't know, we'll see. But there's like a male like love interest character, Thomas Cresswell, and I've heard people talk about him and be like, he's the best book boyfriend ever. And I mean, he was okay. Like maybe it gets better, I don't know, but I found him a little dismissive. Like the way they talk, the core of it is the kind of relationship I do like. It's like that bickering, like smart aleck kind of character. I do like that character, but for whatever reason it didn't 100% work for me here. And then my main issue with this story was the like mystery element, and I'm not going to tell you what the back of the book says in case you've never read it and you still want to read this book or whatever. But there's a blurb on the back of the book that in my opinion gives away like the whole mystery. I feel like it was meant to be a mystery, like, but I mean, I called the mystery from like very early on, and I was like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's not like the big reveal, like it's setting me up to think that's the reveal, you're gonna hurt yourself. Okay, you made it. Sorry, the cat. But no, I was right the whole time, and I don't know, that kind of wasn't what I was here for. But I probably will read it. I think a lot of people say the second book is like their favorite, so maybe it just gets better. And I think this was Carrie Maniscalco's debut, so maybe that like she'll become, not that she's like an awful writer or anything, I'm not trying to say that at all. She's a perfectly good, serviceable writer. And she kept me on the edge of my seat even when like I kind of know what was going on. But so whatever. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. What was next? Oh, next was another ebook or audiobook from the library, and that was called The Moscow Rules, and this was by Antonio and Jana Mendez, and then there was like another writer as well, and I can't remember. I've read another book by Antonio Mendez before, and it is I think it's called Argo, and it is, he was involved, he works for the CIA, or he worked for the CIA, and that follows his involvement in the whole Argo events. Jana Mendez is his wife. She was not his wife at the time of Argo or at the time that he mostly talks about in this book, but they are married now. She has also actually been on, I think it's Wired. They do like the expert technique critique videos, which I really enjoy, and she has done one before for spycraft stuff. And she did a lot of like disguises and things along those lines with the CIA. And I remember really enjoying Argo. It was like one of my first audiobooks, and I just really enjoyed listening. Like I didn't want to stop listening to it. And this one was really well done as well. So this one covers a lot of like what was going on during the Cold War. So spycraft and missions and everything that was taking place, mainly with the US going to the Soviet Union, and the Moscow Rules was like a name for how to like what you had to follow and like what was the plan for behaving in like Moscow, or when you were like trying to spy on the Kremlin or the USSR, Russia, all those things. And it's really interesting. He talks about like specific situations, specific like intelligence officers and missions and stuff that they had. I really enjoyed it. He talked a lot about how technology grew, and they used like film and like special effects artists and makeup artists and stuff to grow what they had, like their knowledge base, and to build technology, which that's talked a little bit about in Argo as well. So I really liked it. He has other books, so I think I'm going to try and get those as well. And then I read Moonlighter by Serena Bowen. This is her, it's not her newest release at this point because she has a release with Tanya Ebby out now, but this is one of her newer releases from this year. This is the first book in a series called The Company, but it is connected to that Brooklyn Bruisers world I was talking about earlier. This follows Eric Bayer, who is in the Brooklyn Bruisers, and a woman named Alex, who is the CEO of like a telecom company. And I give this 4 stars. It's contemporary romance. And again, I didn't read the synopsis. I think I thought this was going to be more suspenseful than it actually ended up being. It does have romantic suspense elements, which is not my favorite subgenre, by the way. But it's not over the top, which sometimes I feel like romantic suspense gets a little crazy, personally. But this worked really well. I loved reading about Alex and Eric's dynamic. They were like childhood friends, and then they come back together because she's in danger, and his family runs like a security firm, so he is like helping her out. There's like a fake dating element. And she's also pregnant, which is not my favorite plotline type of story. But that's personal preference. I think it's done fairly well in here. There's some side characters I really like. There was also some serious sequel bait, or at least I hope that was sequel bait and I'm not being like conned. We'll see. But I did really enjoy it. And I mean, it's a Serena Bowen book. Of course I enjoyed it. Speaking of Serena Bowen, the last book I read was another reread, and that was Rookie Move by Serena Bowen. I read this on Audible Escape. This is actually the first Brooklyn Bruisers series, because apparently I'm just rereading all the Serena Bowen now. And this follows Leo Trevi, who is actually the older brother of DJ from the 15th Minute. And he is starting his rookie year at the Brooklyn Bruisers, which is a newer NHL team. And he ends up reconnecting with his high school girlfriend, Georgia. He did not want to break up with her when they were graduating. She broke up with him. She had been raped. That's addressed in the 15th Minute. It is addressed in here, in case that bothers you. She doesn't ever go into like detail about what happened to her, but it is something that's there. And so she's raped while on like a spring break tennis trip, and she thinks he like pities her and everything, so she ends up breaking up with him. So they come back together here. To make things even more complicated, George's dad is the coach for the Brooklyn Bruisers. But I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars again. Leo is such a precious, precious hero. I do not remember him being so sweet and kind and generous. Like, I didn't think he was like a bad guy, but I didn't remember him being this nice. Georgia is great as well. She's like working really hard. She just wants to be like really good at her job and to do the best she can, and she's hardworking, and she's really respectful, like respectable. And it's a second chance romance, which is like one of my favorite things. And I love the whole Brooklyn Bruisers world, and I love a good hockey romance. And I thought this one was really good. And in general, I liked the narrators for this. They weren't my favorite, but they weren't bad. So it was a good reread, and I'm excited to keep rereading these books. If nothing else, because I want to get to Brooklyn Air and reread it because that was like the book I was waiting for this whole series, and then I just like want to get to it again, but I'm like, no, I need to reread them in order. So that's what I'm doing. So those are the 11 books that I read this month. A lot of them were rereads, a lot of them were audiobooks, but I'm okay with that. There are about 10 books I would like to get read before the end of the year, between physical books and like arcs that I need to read. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!